Hi, hello. It has been a while since I made a video on religion or politics. Sorry about this hair. Uh, we're kind of in a pseudo lockdown situation. Basically, in Japan, it's kind of complicated. Their constitution doesn't allow for that kind of. Anyway, so this video is about something in general with conversation regarding religion or politics, where people are kind of really entrenched in their beliefs. And I'm going to just say this up front. I'm not an expert, like giving an opinion, sharing my knowledge, or that kind of thing. It's not that kind of video. I'm not that good at it. But I think the ability to do this kind of conversation is really important. And I've been trying to learn it, and I want to share the things I found through learning, and maybe we can have a discussion. I think there's like two main reasons that make such conversations difficult. The first one is just the consequence you have in these conversations. Basically, when this conversation ends badly, you just damage or outright just destroy relationships. Of course, this is more like with regard to physical conversation when you're with a family member, a coworker, someone you actually know, a close friend whom you share a hobby with. So basically, the consequence of that is you have to be very careful with the words you use and say. So maybe there's not a lot of opportunity to try things, and you don't get a lot of exposure to new ideas or opinions. And I think that's the problem everyone faces. Uh, it's of course, it's kind of different on the internet where it's pretty much free without this kind of consequence. Still, I think it's just one I just say whatever I want. Usually, it pretty much always turns into a yelling match, and but when I'm careful, I can kind of just get people to actually open up and talk about their doubts and actually listen, understand what I'm saying. So I think it's always useful to approach this kind of conversation with care as if you're doing a real life conversation. And of course, there's always the choice of not doing them at all if you don't have the time. I certainly reduce the amount of conversation I've had over the years. I think a lot of it sounds like common sense, like just not provoking the other person, like not mocking them. However ridiculous their belief might sound to me, and it's the same thing with being condescending. It really repels people, which acts against my interest in having a meaningful conversation. But this really isn't an easy thing to do because it's not just not actively trying to mock or demean or condescend, but rather you have to kind of imagine how the other person might feel and plan around that, plan what I'm saying really consciously. Just it takes a lot of effort at first, but I kind of do it automatically at this point because I gradually learn things that people aren't offended about that I used to be worried about. So I can kind of be more free and more natural when doing it. Another thing I found that really makes people unhappy is when I just contradict people with my own opinion. Of course, it might feel inevitable, but it's something. It's especially when it's regarding something that people, it's like a deep belief that's really entangled in other things they may believe, like a religion. I used to think this is just me being honest. I used to think this is like it's the right thing to do. It deserves to be said, although even it may hurt a relationship. It's a truth, but again, if people are uncomfortable with the conversation, it's not really what I want. It's a bit, and I find it really, it's not, it's rarely effective in getting the point across. So ultimately, it's just not a practical thing to do, saying just straight out your opinion, contradicting other people. If I ever do it, I may still do it. It's for when there's an audience. Like there's a third person that's listening, and I must be very clear where I stand for that audience, so they don't get confused. And some of this stuff I didn't learn on my own, of course. I learned from this thing called street epistemology, which you probably seen videos of in my past videos. You can have a look if you want to. I'm really surprised how much I can get out of someone when they feel they can like freely express themselves without me judging them at every turn, which I used to do. And in order to do that, I can just make them feel that way by not judging them at every turn, and also by showing people that I actually understand what they're talking about. Basically, show them I understand what they're talking about rather than just reacting with whatever I have in my mind. Basically, this is done by like not stating what I think their belief is, but to say it as a question. Is this what your belief is? It's also kind of like a safeguard because sometimes what I think their belief is, not it's not actually their belief is. And maybe I wasn't paying attention. Maybe it's misunderstanding. Sometimes I just got bad information. It does happen, even though at this point most people would say, like when I'm paying attention, they will say, "I got what they're thinking." But it's a good safeguard, and it's also helpful because when I got it wrong, anything, if I'm trying to construct my argument on top of the wrong idea of what they believe, it's kind of pointless. It's just a waste of time, and I had people do the same to me, and it's really annoying to read or listen to, whether it's text or real conversation. And even with all that, sometimes it just doesn't work. There are people out there who's just like, they're just toxic. Like, there's no way to have a respectful conversation with them or to get them to open up with what they really believe, or to get them to listen to and think about things I'm thinking about. Maybe they had like a trauma with this kind of conversations, like, or they are just really full of themselves. They're just jerks. I don't know. I could be wrong, but as long as I'm having a conversation, I always try to see the other person as rational, and I try to see how the different experiences and environment we had could have caused our difference in belief, rather than something about the person themselves and their nature, like they are stupid or insane or an egomaniac. I mean, because if that's the case, there's really not much I can do anyway. So why don't just focus on the things in which I can make a difference? Focus on the positive. What I realized through all this is people with whom I really can have a nice conversation are really few. It's a number. I feel comfortable saying that they are the exceptions, and I should just leave them be. There's nothing I can do with them. And that's what I find helpful navigating conversations like this without jeopardizing relationships. Now I want to talk about the second reason I think that makes this kind of conversation difficult, which is, unlike other things in life, actually doing this and learning about the subject doesn't really seem to make people better at it. Don't get me wrong, I still think it's essential to learn and to have actual conversations, but the problem I had at first is I don't always learn the real thing, like after I started learning and engaging in conversations. Because more often than not, I'm learning from sources that agrees with me, because those are the ones I found to be reliable. Because I know. It's just not practical to learn about every other opinion out there from their perspective. I can learn them from my perspective. There's a lot of things out there. So even though I might know much more in general about the arguments of the other side, rather than someone who's actually on that side, I don't know exactly which of those apply to this specific person I'm having a conversation with. And that's a problem because I'm basing my argument on assumptions. So if that assumption is off, again, my argument would be meaningless. And this is why, again, I think it's helpful to make sure that I properly understand what they believe rather than relying on my assumptions. People have diverse beliefs. Making sure I got it right by asking them feels kind of frustrating and restricting. By having the other person be the judge really forces me to learn from their perspective. I don't do it all the time, but it's something I do when I just met someone or when I'm in doubt. I think it's the same problem when you've had a lot of conversations because the people you had conversation with, they might be from different they might have different beliefs as well. So you may be confusing between the belief between one person and another person. People just really have diverse beliefs. Second problem I found with learning about the subject is I end up with a lot of things to say in an argument. Like when they say one thing, I know like a dozen of things to say in response that really proves what they said to be wrong. uh, because of that, I find myself having really long conversations, but even though I pay much more efforts and more facts and knowledge I put into them, I'm not getting more results. And if anything, it seems to just drive people out from engaging with me, actually. I think it's just more human nature, really, that we have a limited amount of attention and want you to a long monologue. It's hard for me to sit through a monologue without interrupting the other person, not to mention keeping track of everything being said. It's near impossible. And as for how I solve this problem, this was another thing I learned from street epistemology. Basically, people have different standards. So an argument that works for me might not work for someone else because we base our belief on different things, be it science, religion, media, or people experts we know. This kind of comes back to making people comfortable in expressing themselves and listening, questioning to understand what they believe so you know what they base their beliefs on. And you do that by asking questions like, how did you come to this conclusion? So you can find out. And after that, I will be able to trim off the arguments that won't work because I know we have a different basis and I can focus on the important part. And these are the things I find helpful in having a conversation on difficult topics like politics or religion. I think there are other topics where they can help. For example, some people might say multi-level marketing schemes are like religion, so maybe they can help. I'm not sure. I haven't had a lot of experience with it. Some people might say, what I'm saying here is just common decency, it's common sense. I don't really believe in being like super nice and friendly. Maybe it's just me, but I'm not saying I like being rude. But it's just one being nice and friendly. I really mean it because I only do it to the degree that I'm comfortable with, and I only do it when I'm comfortable doing it. I'm not there to trick people into spilling their secrets and attacking them. Sometimes I'm really there to learn. If anything, I'm learning all this is majority of people I disagree with they're reasonable. They're not stupid or crazy like how I used to believe, and it really opens up the possibility of conversations I can have, and it make me look at the world in a much brighter way. And this is time in a regular YouTube video, the guy would tell you to subscribe to my channel or follow me on Twitter, but YouTube is just a hobby for me, and compared to those things, I'm more interested in learning what's your thoughts on this. What's your journey like? And I really like to read about it in the comments. And thanks for watching.